According to a press release from Career Builder, 75% of employers have caught a lie on a resume. So what happens to the 25% who don't get caught? Is it possible to lie on your resume and still get the job? We're going to find that out in this episode. Hey, this is Michael Rincon with Michael's Business English. For those of you who have no idea who I am, my name is Michael Rincon. I'm a former six-figure data analyst turned ESL instructor and career coach. If you're new here to this channel, we talk about business English, communications, and career development. So if you're into that, make sure you like and subscribe, and all the links that we mentioned in this video you can find in the description box below. Alright, so for those of you who are thinking, is this some kind of joke? Is this real? Am I really going to talk about lying on the resume? Well, the reason that I wanted to talk about it is that I had a student who I tried to help him with his CV, and he made some really interesting comments about his opinion about the job search. And one thing that he brought up was credibility about employers. And he said that he was worried that a lot of his employers would claim that he was lying on his resume. They could deny it. So he was afraid of what to talk about for his achievements. He said he was also afraid of talking about his frequent job changes. And he felt that he should lie about it because he's been laid off so many times. And it had nothing to do with him. It was the company restructured. And he also had to leave companies because the company wasn't paying his expenses or not paying the client's goods that they paid for. So there are all sorts of interesting, I guess what you would call political dilemmas here. So today's video is actually going to be more of an opinion piece than a fact-based piece. Meaning, like, I'm going to tell you my experiences, I'm going to tell you my thoughts about it, but I'm not necessarily going to give you, like, this is the cold, hard truth, and these are the facts, and this is the things you should be aware of, because it's a very gray area, and I think it's really important to explore this topic fully instead of judging it and saying, no, it's wrong to lie in your resume, you should never do that ever, ever, ever. And I'll explain that more in a little detail about why this is a problem. But for this video, there are going to be three main points I want to cover. The first one is, can you lie on your resume or CV and get away with it? The second one is, should you lie? And then the third one is my personal stories, which I think that's going to give you some clarity about what my opinion about this is overall. I think this will help you make the decision. Okay, so let's get started. The first question is, can you lie on your resume or CV and get away with it? And the short answer is yes, you can 100% get away with it. And I know this through fact. I've known this because I've seen plenty of employees and candidates and job seekers claim they have certain skills and experience, and they show up on the job and then they can't perform. So if you're looking for like evidence of that, like I don't need to go find, I can probably find you some evidence for you, but like I implore you to go to Quora, go on Google, go on Ask a Manager. It's my favorite blog. There are tons of horror stories of people who have claimed that they have the experience and then they show up and the boss has no idea. The boss is completely clueless. The coworkers kind of figure it out and they kind of make the determination, but there's nothing you can be done at that point because the boss won't do anything. So the short answer is yeah, you can definitely lie on your resume or your CV and get away with it. That's not really a negligible thing. It's just a fact. Even with things like background checks, by the way, and I've actually done this. My very last job offer as an employee, when I got the offer, I had to put in some data in there, and I decided to skip a lot of data in the background check. So one of the things was addresses for the past 10 years. And I decided just to put my one address that I had recently and just put that as the only address I had, knowing that there was a chance that it would get flagged, right? I didn't care. I didn't really want the job. I was very immature about it, but that's what I did. And I thought it was going to come back as a flag and said, no, I can't, this is a problem, that I missed it. It turns out, no, I passed my background check. So it's surprising. That's not exactly the same thing because it's about physical address location. My previous address is not work experience. But, background check is still a background check. So that was a little surprise to me. Like, I wonder why I didn't get flagged. So that's an interesting food for thought to keep that in mind. Like, the people who are in charge and have the power to actually verify data, they're not doing a good job, or maybe just that they just don't care. Okay, so now that we have covered can you lie, and we've confirmed that yes, it's certainly possible to get away with it, the question is, should you lie? And my personal opinion, this is not a fact-based thing, but the risks are too high. So it's up to you. If you're willing to absorb risk, you're willing to take that chance, then by all means, lie on your resume and hope you don't get caught. But my personal opinion is that the risk is really high. And here's some what if scenarios. If you go and read on the internet, you can probably find these yourselves. But imagine, so some of the examples I talked about, some of the horror stories I mentioned, were people who showed up on the job claiming they knew certain technical skills, and then turned out they couldn't do it, and their coworkers found out. So for every horror story of someone who complains about that and says that the guy gets away with it, I bet you there is a horror story of someone who actually got punished for it and lost their job. So that's the thing I think about, is like, is it really worth risking getting a job offer for a job that you're not qualified to do, and then getting laid off later because you don't actually meet the qualifications of the job? So that's something to think about. The other thing I want to bring up is that it's not really that it's lying. A lot of my students struggle with achievements, and they'll say something like, if it's an achievement, it's like, it's lying if I say it that way. And in the book Psycho-Cybernetics, what Maxwell Maltz found was that it's not the words, it's not that it's lying, it's the belief of achievements. So if you're having trouble with your achievements, I suggest go checking out that book. I'll put the link in the description. But the main gist of it is, a lot of my students, when they're trying to write up achievements, they're afraid that they're going to be called liars because someone's going to say, no, they didn't do that. So my opinion, my thoughts here are like, if you're struggling to write out your achievements because you think it's a lie, then think about, why do you think it's a lie, and what do you need to do to make it so it's true? So, for example, one student said that they were afraid of things like claiming certain data. The exact words that he used here is that even if I claim credit for certain achievements, the future employer might do a background check and call the companies, and the former employers might deny that my student actually had these achievements. So my thoughts are, what do you need to do to make it so that they can't deny? Does that make sense? So for him, like, I told him, like, if you can't do anything specific, you can't, like, say I did this many, I saved the company millions of dollars or whatever it is that we claimed. What you can do instead is, like, can I just say in general? In general, I worked on certain tasks that helped the company save money. Is that true? Yes, because he had to. It's part of his job. That's part of his responsibilities, was doing this certain task. This task did certain responsibilities. So, for example, for me, I was a QA analyst. One thing that I was responsible for was managing a scorecard to ensure our staff augmentation was performing processes per procedure, which the result of that is that it improves our compliance process. It improves our assurance of compliance. Now, if I was afraid of putting a number in there, like I put in metrics, like I saved company process time or improved quality assurance time by a certain amount, I could just put it like that, just leave a generic statement, like, I did this thing that had this expected result. That was the requirement of this. So you see, the point there is that it would be impossible for them to deny. They have to say, yes, Michael did this thing, and the point of this task was to do this, was for this goal. Michael managed a scorecard to ensure compliance. Ensuring compliance means we save money because we don't get hit with regulatory orders or compliance requests. Do you see how I did that? Does that make sense to you? Let me know in the comments if you have some struggles with your achievements, you're not sure if they're true achievements, and we can process those together. So the final thing I want to cover before I end this video is some personal stories that I have, some horror stories I have, actually. When I used to work at the mortgage company, we had a coworker come in, and she was highly recommended by another team. So it was an inside hire, and the reason my boss hired her, this is what my boss told me. She said, "This girl, she's just like you, Mike. She is an Excel wizard." And so that was it. I didn't actually know her. I didn't work with her, so I didn't know anything about her. I didn't do the interview. But the first day on the job, my expectation, she knows Excel, right? She knows the qualifications. She knows how to do at least the level of Excel that I do. And I say, okay, go ahead and take this data and build a pivot table. And this new hire goes, how do you build pivot tables? And then I asked her, like later that day, we talked about VLOOKUP and data validation. She's like, it turned out she knew VLOOKUP, but only when it was copied and pasted over. Like she had a very specific thing, in the meaning like she couldn't do VLOOKUP on her own. It was VLOOKUP meaning that she had taken someone else's formula and repeated it. So technically, she didn't lie on her resume. She didn't lie in the interview. You know, if you asked her, do you know Excel? She'll say, yes, I know Excel. Because it's such a broad thing. This is a really important thing I think people struggle with, is sometimes we say people are lying. And it's like, no, it was just a miscommunication. You see, if someone had asked her, like, do you know how to do pivot tables, then she would have said no. But that was the problem. That wasn't showing up in the profile of the job description. It didn't show up in the interview. So this new hire was not properly screened. So one could say, yes, maybe she lied, but the reality is that she didn't know that she was lying. She simply, the question wasn't asked properly. So that's my opinion on that topic, is that it's complicated. It's very gray. I can also give you one other story. Actually, I give you quite a few stories about me. Sometimes what happens is, and I'm not sure why, recruiters reach out to me for jobs that require skills I don't have. Like one of the job offers I got was for a business analyst role that required SAS, which is a business intelligence software. Now, if you're in my resume CV masterclass, I talked about this, where I'm upfront with recruiters. I tell them, hey, just so you know, I don't have experience with SAS. I don't have experience with this other thing, which was this voice analytics. And the recruiter told me, don't worry about that. Which at first was fine, but when I showed up to the interview, they asked me what's my SAS experience. I said, I don't have SAS experience, and it's not on my resume. It's not like I say a SAS professional. I know Tableau, I know SQL, I know Excel, but it came up like if you don't know SAS, then like what are you doing here? Like that wasn't my fault. Like I didn't lie. I told them flat out. But there was some sort of miscommunication between the recruiter and the hiring manager and me about what I can do, what I can't do. But either way, I got the job because one, I was upfront and honest about what I can do, and two, I was upfront and honest about what I had learned about SAS. Because I had taken the time, the initiative to say, I know this job requires SAS. This is what I know about it so far. But the thing is, like, you can't always control this. You can't always control the narrative. That you can't control the expectations people have of you. So if you're worried about like being called a liar, sometimes it's not even your fault that this happens. Sometimes it's that someone has a misunderstanding or they're communicating incorrectly, and that's why you're having these problems. That's why you might have these situations where someone claimed that you lied when the reality is that there was miscommunication. All right, so to conclude this video, I talked about, can you lie on your resume and get away with it? Should you lie? And I talked about some of my personal stories regarding this. So the question I have for you, and I'd like to know, let me know in the comments, have you ever been accused of lying on your resume? Have you ever been afraid of lying on your resume? Have you been confused about what you should do? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about this. Let's work through this together. We can see if we can find a solution for you. Like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe and check out some of the other stuff I have here on the channel. Thanks so much for watching. I know this was kind of a interesting piece, but I thought I'd cover it because, one of my students are coming to me and saying, I can't put it on here, it's a lie. I can't talk about it because I'm lying on my resume. That probably means that there are tons of people out there who are like confused about what they should do. So I thought I'd make this video in case you're someone who's like, you just haven't spoken up, you're quiet, you're afraid, you're just not sure. Like, now you know. Like, here's my opinion, here's what you should do about it. And you don't have to be afraid. There's nothing shameful about it. It's more about being understanding about what's causing this. What is your reason for the desire to lie, and what are some things you can do to fix it? What can you do to make it so it's no longer a lie? All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day.